We often talk about CISOs as being security engineers for sort of 3 to 5 years, and then sort of making a switch or a transition, going into management, director, and eventually to being a chief officer. And the question was, what about being a consultant? Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. It is time, my friends. It is time. I hope you are ready. I hope you're strapped in. We got a great episode coming your way. It is time. It is time. It is time. It is time for Life of a CISO with yours truly. Dr. E is in the house. Hope you are doing awesome. Hope you are clear and focused and asking yourself really good questions. I'll give you a little hint if you're not also following my Bulletproof Cyber. That's another great podcast you should listen to. This one is really focused on Chief Information Security Officer. We do get into mindset, but it's really a lot on strategy and business and being a chief officer focused on information security. Bulletproof Cyber is the complementary one, which is really focused on mindset for techies, mindset for CISOs. Because here's the reality. Most people like you and me don't go to self-help or motivational seminars. They're crazy. Like, I'm one of the anomalies. I go to Tony Robbins, and I'll be honest with you, I enjoy it. It's a little crazy. Like, it's like way outside of my norm. Like, I kid you not, Tony Robbins events, they start off, first of all, they run on Tony time. So they say the event starts at 10 o'clock. You show up at 10 o'clock, and you just sit around for 2 or 3 hours. Tony might show up at 12, he might show up at 1, he might show up at 2. Now, the idea is that everybody is networking and talking and interfacing and grouping, so that's the whole idea. But I'm this techie guy. I'm sitting there like, this is too weird for me. Like, I just sort of, it took me a while to adjust, but I just sort of sit in my seat and sort of work on my email or read, because I'm like, yeah, this is not my thing. And then about 30 minutes before Tony comes on stage, they start blasting music. They actually have dancers on stage, and then everybody starts dancing and jumping around and doing things. And then, like, during the event, you have to get up and hug people and give back rubs. I think it's like really, really outside of the comfort zone. And my reality is, not a lot of techies go to that, right? And many techies sort of be like, get me out of here, right? Like, this is crazy. So we don't go to those types of events, but guess what? We need that too. We need mindset. We need to understand about goals and targets and all those things. So that's what Bulletproof Cyber is all about. It really gets a lot more into what can we do to be bulletproof as cybersecurity professionals. So definitely, if you're not following that podcast, definitely want to check that one out too. That one, I think, is on a different platform. I believe Life of a CISO is on YouTube, and then we use the podcasting platform for Bulletproof Cyber. But yeah, if you search on it, you can definitely find it. Or just if you put a comment on this video and where it is, one of my team members will definitely point you to where that is. So yeah, I have 2 different podcasts. We shoot every week. Great content. So to get you to be the ultimate best version of yourself, or in this case, the world-class chief officer focused on information security. Now, before we get into today's topic on metrics and measuring, I want to address a question from one of you, my amazing listeners. I love questions. I'll often sometimes and just text you back. Other times, if they're really, really good, I'll cover them on the show. So the question is essentially this. They gave a lot of great background, so I really appreciate all that detail and all that information. But the question was, we often talk about CISOs as being security engineers for sort of 3 to 5 years, and then sort of making a switch or a transition, going into management, director, and eventually to being a chief officer. And the question was, what about being a consultant? They took the route, which I think was an amazing route, of sort of being a consultant for many years and then sort of switching back to that chief officer space. So the answer is absolutely. Anything that gives you additional skills on communicating, presenting, understanding people is an amazing skill to have. Because one of the risks we have with being security engineers is we're often only around techie people and computers. And if you're a SOC engineer and you're working the night shift, right, from midnight to 8 in the morning, you're probably spending 90% of your day talking and interfacing with a computer or with humans on a computer. You're actually texting, typing, slacking, coordinating, very little interaction with real, actual human beings. Let me help you out here. That is not normal, and you could argue is not really healthy. To me, one of the big reasons why we're having so many issues in this country right now with working and work ethics and all those factors. I mean, you look at a lot of the surveys, frustration is at a high. I mean, there's a lot of tension and conflict in the workplace. And it's all because we've been isolated because of COVID. Working from home. I know from an employee standpoint, you're like, you love it. Because that's the reality. You can do other things. You don't have to work as much, right? I mean, I'm just being honest with you. I mean, a lot of people get really heated on this topic and say I'm unfair, but the reality is people want to work from home so they don't have to work as much. Because if they're in the office and they're there 8 to 5, they have to basically either sneak and do things on the side without their boss knowing about it, or they actually have to work from 8 to 5. But when you're working from home, you can do the laundry, you can go cooking, you can even go shopping, you can help the kids, you can do a lot more things that are not work-related. Now, whether that's good or bad and life-work balance is a different topic. But here's the issue. We are human beings which need human interaction. There's a reason why there's so many people. There's a reason why we like living around other individuals. You need human interaction. They've done studies where when people are not interacting with other people, that they actually get depressed, their social skills deteriorate. Because as with anything, if you don't use it, you lose it. Being social, talking, friendly, nice, complimenting is a skill that you build. Now, here's the problem. If we spend most of our time on social media, let's face it, people are a lot more direct, a lot more opinionated, and just being honest, a little mean. I mean, you look at things that people say or do on social media, they would never say that to your face. Right? They would never say some of those things to your face, but on social, it's like they're shielded. So we actually have gotten to this point where we're so open and direct and critical that now when we get around other humans, we actually get distance or get into fights because that's not normal ways of interacting. So being around humans and interacting with humans is needed for health, for social, for all those factors. So to me, that's why I'm a fan of either in the office or making sure that your employees have social interaction so that they're around other folks. So back to the point of consulting. Consulting is amazing because a large part of consulting is actually interacting and meeting with other people. I know most consulting firms don't like Zoom or virtual meetings. And here's the reality. It's not good for numbers. A key part of being a consultant is building trust, building rapport, and building loyalty with your customers. These consulting firms and consulting companies thrive themselves on keeping a customer long-term. My philosophy, I'm in the consulting business, my philosophy with my company is customers for life. When we get a customer, my goal is to keep them, to keep them for life. And one of the key ways of doing that is by meeting with them face to face. I actually have a depot tomorrow. It's actually remote, but me and the attorney who's defending my depot, we're actually meeting in person. So they're going to show up about 8:15. So we'll actually spend 45 minutes together. We'll go get some coffee. We'll talk and chat, and then we'll be in the room together and can actually sort of be able to have interaction with other humans. And I will tell you, changes the customer relationship, totally transforms it, because now I'm actually going to build rapport. If this individual, I did a depot on Zoom with them, we would join 5 minutes before. We wouldn't have any time together. We wouldn't have any time to interact, get to know each other, or anything like that. So anything where you can build people skills, you can interact and work with other humans is huge. So consulting is definitely a good thing to do. And here's the other part. Consulting tends to be more advisory, strategic than it is technical. You're typically not going to hire a consultant to configure your firewall. Right? That's going to be usually either a W-9 or a W-2, or you're going to get a technical contract. But normally consultants don't focus on the implementation of technical details. They focus on consulting, strategy, implementation. So to me, if you're willing to do that and you can get a job, working at a consulting firm is amazing, because they often put you through training where they teach you about interaction and communication and program management and interacting with people and interacting with humans. So yes, it's something we don't talk about that much, because the traditional path is security engineer, the security management, the CISO. But if you're able to get a consulting job, especially in cybersecurity, where you can do cybersecurity consulting or business management, that's also a huge, huge win for the reasons I just mentioned. So now let's switch to the topic at hand. We are struggling in security. What we're doing is not really working. And once again, depending on who I talk to, some people are like, Eric, you're doomsday, you're negative. I'm like, no, I'm the most positive person in the world. I think security people are amazing. I think it's the best field to be in. I think it has done amazing things, and we've grown and we've expanded. And I'm all about bringing fun back to cyber. I actually go in when I do meetings with clients. They're like, Eric, you have the most fun while talking about bad things or depressing things, right? Because here's the reality. If you're not excited and engaged and having fun, your ability to produce reduces greatly. Just try doing something when you're down, frustrated, or angry versus trying to do something when you're happy, excited, and alive. Completely different output and energy. That's the whole thing of getting in flow. Getting in flow is when you're so energized and aligned, you can produce things in hours and days that take people weeks and months to do. So I'm all about positive and fun, but I'm also about reality. We can be positive. Cybersecurity has so much potential. Cybersecurity is such a critical problem, and cybersecurity is such an amazing thing that can help people and business expand their lives to new levels. Super positive. But the reality of the situation is what we are doing today is not working. That's fact. It's not negative. It's not down. It's fact. And how do I know that? Because look at the numbers. The amount of breaches are increasing. The amount of monetary damage to individuals and businesses are increasing exponentially. It's not doubling. If you look at 2022 to 23, it doubled. 23 to 24, it was almost a 200%. And now this year, it's looking like it's going to almost be 300 or 400% increase in the monetary damage. But the issue is, we've accepted it as norm. Attackers are stealthy, and it's not being reported. So if you watch the news or you talk and look at general mainstream media, you would think things are amazing because nobody's covering it or talking about it. But it is a silent killer. We are at war and we don't even realize it. We don't even recognize it's happening. And one of the problems is we're not able to measure. If we can't measure something, It's hard to manage. I think it was Peter Drucker. I don't know if he created it or he made it famous, but you can't manage what you can't measure. And that's what we're struggling with in cyber. We can't manage it because we can't measure it. And one of the reasons why is we're looking at it wrong. Cybersecurity is not a technical problem, which means you can't measure it with numbers or traditional data. It is a business problem, which means we need business-centric metrics. We need metrics that look at how the behavior of people work and operate, not just pure technology. I'll give you an example. IT. IT is a technical problem and is measured in technology. How do you measure success of IT? How do you measure the performance of a CIO? It's easy. Uptime availability. The standard industry practice is 5 nines. 99.999% uptime availability. If you meet that, awesome. You're successful, you're promoted, money flows, life is good. If you don't meet that, then life becomes hard and difficult and you might be looking for another job. But here's the reality. With understanding technology and redundancy, it's fairly easy. I say easy in quotes because I know CISO goes, it's not an easy job. I know it's not an easy job. But if you understand and know tolerance and redundancy and how this equipment works and failure rates and performance and metrics and all those factors, because it's a technical problem, you can stay ahead of it. You have enough servers in enough countries, and your probability of all of them going down is not only almost zero, but a lot less than the 0.0001%, right? Because you got to do 99% uptime availability, which means it's 0.0001% downtime. So if you have 5 servers, you can do the math and go, the probability of all them going down is going to be 0.000001, which clearly is within our metric, so we're good. Same thing. Redundant routers, redundant switch. So you put enough redundancy and failover in place, and you can get pretty close to meeting that. Now, it gets tricky when you add in humans. Like, this is where IT has trouble with security because of distributed denial of service attacks and ransomware attacks and malware and things like that, where now it can actually take down some of your lines. But once again, if I have one line and I get DDoSed, we lose that uptime availability. But what if I have 7 lines or 8 lines? The probability of DDoSing all of them is really slim. So once again, technical problem solved by properly implementing redundancy with the proper budget. Cyber is not that way. You can go in and you can have firewalls, you can have IDSs, you can have IPSs, and still get compromised and still get broken into. That's one of the challenges. The way we used to try to do cybersecurity is with referenced architectures. Now, don't get me wrong. Referenced architectures and standards are great. But I can go in and I can have a firewall, IDS, IPS, SIM, a DLP, all those factors, and still get compromised and still get broken into. Because the reality is twofold. One, they have to be configured correctly. Right? Just having a firewall isn't going to help you. And then with things like firewalls, you run into the preventive versus detective. Preventive measures are great in cyber. Here's the problem. Preventive measures, because they're being preventive, they're blocking. They can only block things that are 100% bad 100% of the time. If you have things that are sometimes good and sometimes bad, you can't block them. You can't, because it will negatively hurt the business. If there's activity like failed login attempts, that happens to normal users. But if I go in and I have preventive technology that says, okay, if you have 3 failed login attempts within 2 minutes, I'm going to disable your account. You're never able to log in. I'm blocking you because you're an attacker. Well, here's the issue. What happens when somebody's traveling and they forget their password, or they mistype a password, or some other issue, and now their account's locked permanently, and now they can't do their job? Now they can't give the presentation to the client. Now it hurts the business. So you can't block that. You have to actually allow it. Now, yes, you can do things like you block it for 5 or 10 minutes, but the reality is anything that's truly preventive, if there are false positives, it will hurt the business. So that's why you see even modern sites today, like modern websites, most of the time, if there's failed login attempts, they might give you some messages, they might give you some alerts. They're actually not going to block your account because it hurts the business and it loses money and clients. So we have to be super careful. Preventive measures can only block things that are 100% bad 100% of the time, which means we have to recognize attacks are going to happen. So our focus needs to be on what are behavioral predictions that are indicative of potential attacks. And this is getting down to basically anomaly detection. My view is if you want to be a world-class CISO, if you want to be the master of your domain, if you just want to dominate in security, you want to be a dominating force that stays on top of attacks, catches attacks, detects attacks, and minimizes and controls damage. You have to become a master at behavioral anomalies. Because here's the reality. If somebody is going to do damage, if somebody is going to break into your site, they're going to have to do something different. Because if they are doing exactly what a normal user would do, there's no deviations in behavior, they're doing the exact same behavior, then either all your employees are criminals or all criminals are employees. Right? But assuming the way your employees are acting and behaving and the way your customers are acting and behaving is not causing harm or damage to your business, then that means an attacker is going to have to act or behave differently. So if we now look at those behavior analytics, it's going to now give us insight into what's happening. This, my friends, is not just cybersecurity. This is life. The way you master life, whether it's health, mindset, relationships, business, security, is by baselining critical activity and looking for deviations from the norm. I shared, I believe it was in my Bulletproof Cyber, I had a little bit of a health scare. I won't give you all the details here. But every doctor basically said the same thing. Eric, no matter what it is, you're catching it early. Here's why. I live my life like a security professional. I joke, everybody needs a hacker in their life. Everyone needs a security professional. To me, cybersecurity, health, and everything else is all about baselining and looking for anomalies. I get blood work done every 2 months. Maybe a little extreme, but I'm not a doctor, so check with your doctor, but I'm a big advocate of quarterly blood work. Here's why. If something is wrong in your body, if you have an ailment, if you have a disease, if you have a virus, something will change in your blood work because it's not normal. So if there's something going on with your kidney enzymes will increase. If there's something going on with your heart enzymes are going to increase. If there's something going on just generally in your body, your blood cells, usually your red increases and your white decreases when there's an illness. So there's going to be deviations. Now here's the problem. If you only get blood work done once every 5 years, you have no idea whether that's normal for you. You have no idea whether it's good, it's bad, or it's changed. So now you're just betting on what are the averages that are used by other humans, which is super dangerous. So by getting my blood work done every 2 months, I now could look for deviations. So if I have an example where the normal rating for your prostate is supposed to be your PSA level, Your PSA level, which measures the health of your prostate, is supposed to be below 4.8. So if I only had blood work done once and it was 4.5, guess what? It shows up as normal, and any doctor would say that's normal. But if I get blood work done every 2 months, and January, March, May, it's 1.9, 2.1, 2.0, 2.1, 1.9, 2.0, and then in December, it jumps up to 4.5, isn't that a problem? Isn't that an issue? Absolutely. So it's deviations from a norm and detecting things early. The trick with health is not saying you're never going to get sick. Now, I'm big on peptides and vitamins and all those factors to minimize. But the reality is everybody is going to have some sickness or illness. The trick in health is not saying you'll never get sick, preventing it early and minimizing damage. So that's the same approach with cybersecurity. What if we pick a metric that has to change and has to deviate, but is easy to measure? And I think it's going to be multiple metrics. But one of my favorite metrics that I use is dropped packets. So essentially, you have a firewall at your perimeter. Now, it could be a perimeter at your cloud. It could be a perimeter at your data center. It could be a perimeter at your VPN location if you have remote employees, whatever it is. But the reality is companies have firewalls that sit in front of their critical data. And that firewall drops packets. I don't know a single firewall out there that has zero drop packets. It's not normal. Everybody is being attacked. Now think about that. If your firewall that's configured to block bad and allow good, and it has 200 or 300 dropped packets a day, doesn't that mean you're being targeted? Doesn't that mean you're at war? Right? It should be zero. If we were in peacetime conditions, if there were no threats, no issues, nobody was targeting you, your firewall should have zero drop packets and maximum functionality. But that's not the case. There's always drop packets. So now here's the reality. Does your executives know that? Does your CEO, CFO, and COO know that? Do they know that you're under attack? Do they know that there's never an hour in any day, 24/7, that you don't have drop packets? Never. I've never seen a company where there's an hour or 2 hours where there's zero drop packets, which means they're always under attack. Right? They're always being compromised. They're always trying to be compromised or trying to be attacked. Your executives need to know that. You need to give them that number so they understand. Now, it goes beyond that. So I baseline. So I'm tracking and I'm baselining. And January, February, March, April, number of drop packets per day are around 300. Now, it could be larger for big companies, smaller, but 300 to 400. So it's 300, 305, 299, 280, 310, 350, 300, 290, 320. And that's sort of the norm. Now, let me ask you a question. If somebody tries to attack you or break in and compromise your data or attack passwords or do a denial of service, what has to happen? It has to happen, my friends. The drop packets have to increase. There's no way around it. That has to occur. So now, if all of a sudden you're going good and your drop packets increase to 600 or 700, don't you want to be alerted? Don't you want to be aware? Don't you want to take action? Absolutely. So now, something that you already have, something as a drop packet can give you an early indicator of an attack. Guarantee no. Is it going to drastically help and increase your visibility? Absolutely. I will tell you, every attack I've worked on, every incident I dealt with, when we went back and looked at the firewall, I could tell when the attack started because I can see a spike in increased packets. So now we have a nice metric. Now there's other metrics I'll give you later on, but I just want to leave you with that one metric. What if we just start and drop packets? What if we use that? Now, Eric, what if we're in the middle of an attack and we start doing it? Now, we have a false norm. Here's the reality. Attacks don't last forever. So what's going to happen? If you're under attack right now, your drop packets say 800. In a month or two, when the attack stops, it drops to 500. So now all of a sudden, if you start monitoring and you think 800 is your norm and then it drops to 500 and 400 and stays there, that means you were under an attack. So now you got to go back and say, okay, that 800 wasn't the norm. It was an attack. And now we have to go back and figure out what happened, what occurred, and how we broke into. So as a CISO, what if we just start simplifying? I'm not saying give up everything else, keep doing all the other stuff you're doing, but what if we started using a simple metric like drop packets, not only to inform the executives, not only to let them know what's happening and give them visibility, but also so now we can start to detect attacks and detect anomalies. It's all about you can't manage what you can't measure. And if we start measuring and managing drop packets, everything will start to shift and change for you as a chief information security officer.